with us today, 4 very successful founders from the SOSV network. So right now, let's start with intros and let's go alphabetically. Maria.
Hi everyone. I'm Maria Soloveychik, co-founder and CEO of SyntheX. We are an IndieBio Batch 3 company. We were, I think, probably their first therapeutics company that started from scratch. And they've had many since, so I think we did okay. My background, I'm a scientist by training. I have a PhD in genetics, and I started the company essentially right after that. I can get into a bit more details about me, but maybe let's go around first.
Yeah, I also want to highlight, I feel like everyone here is so humble. Maria is fluent in 3 languages, and they're very difficult languages. English is the easiest one. She's also fluent in Hebrew and Russian. And also, she's underselling SyntheX. I'm actually an investor in SyntheX. As soon as I heard about it, I was like, whoa, some vial for drug discovery. And it's a directed evolution approach. Nobody's ever done it. I think the other thing that, Maria was able to close a huge round after demo day, and it was just because she came to IndieBio with just an idea. There's no IP issues because nothing was done before, and she proved out the whole thing during the 4 months. And you should definitely Google her demo day video because it's pretty impressive. She found an 18th way for cancer cells to die. So you're speaking to someone that might make history here. Neha.
Hey, my name is Neha. I'm the co-founder of Woovly. So I come from an engineering background, have done my engineering, then did a short course with Stanford. Woovly is all about, it's a social commerce for beauty and personal care category. We provide the best buying experience for brand tagged user-generated content.
I also want to say that Neha is also underselling herself. So she has 3.5 million registered users, and the returning month-over-month returning rate is 40%. If you know nothing about Facebook, that's like Facebook level at the beginning. So it's extremely so it's proof in the pudding in the numbers that she has a very addictive app. Shelby.
Yeah, hey everybody. I'm the CEO and co-founder of RockMass Technologies. We're an industrial technology company right now making mines safer and smarter. So our product uses a combination of computer vision and some robotics approaches. I myself am a geological engineer in my background turned entrepreneur. I had been doing this type of mapping previously and a bit of the right place, right time. Met a couple of researchers who had just found a way to automate a really painful part of it. And so that's how we started RockMass.
That's awesome. I also want to highlight how international this panel is. I do think that some of the most interesting founders have been extremely international. So Shelby was born in Winnipeg, grew up in Vermont, lived in Canada, Singapore, and China. So I can just imagine the number of languages you speak as well. Last but not least, Vu.
Hi, everybody. My name is Vu Van. I'm originally from Vietnam and currently based in the Bay Area. I started the company ELSA, which is an AI that uses voice recognition technology to help language learners around the world improve their English pronunciation and speaking skill. And I started this company about 5 years ago out of my personal challenge. Everybody, just like a lot of us growing up outside of the English-speaking country, I learned a lot of English, but what I ended up doing is just a lot of reading and writing and taking tests, but not be able to speak confidently that other people can understand me. And so I want to work on this mission to really help a lot of people like me to overcome that speaking challenge. Prior to starting the company, I used to live and work in Denmark after Vietnam and then moved to the Bay Area and have been here since.
See what I mean by international is super accomplished. I do think that, maybe there's something neurological about the ability to process multiple languages and to connect dots as a founder and to multitask. But that needs a study, and I don't have the experiment. I don't have any experiments.
When you're giving me too much credit, I only speak English, so I can't. I mean,
you lived in China too, so you can speak a little bit of Chinese.
I survived. No.
So I do see the audience. I see a lot of founders in the audience, which is awesome. So I want to always cater to the audience. And one of the things I always ask, successful founders is, do you have any advice for founders? So let's start alphabetically again. Maria, any words on conviction? Because you needed a lot of that.
Yeah, it's true. You do hear no a lot of times. I mean, this is the most rejection I felt in such a compressed period of time since my PhD. But it's a lot of just having resilience and having faith in what it is that you're doing and being very conscious that this is something that you're going to dedicate the next 5 to 10 years of your life doing. So you better have conviction in what you're building, and enough to have the internal conviction really driving you forward, because you will hear no externally from just about everyone under the sun, and that shouldn't be the thing that stops you. I mean, if it were easy, everybody would do it.
I'll come back with sort of a question on how do you balance between pivot because somebody told you, because that's the advice you got, versus holding on to your internal conviction. You can either answer it now or I can come back to you with that.
No, it's a really good question. I mean, sometimes you definitely need to listen to people and see if it is a consistent thing that you hear over and over from people smarter than you. You should probably definitely pay attention. But there's definitely a mixture of a lot of people out there giving advice without really having skin in the game. And they're just there to kind of give you their 2 cents, and they walk on and do their lives. And you're stuck there trying to figure out how much weight to put on that advice. And it's pretty difficult to parse through the noise. I mean, when you think of what the company would look like, whether or not you do the thing that you want to do versus the thing that somebody just suggested, is that something you still want to be working on 5 years from now? And having that guiding where the company is going. Obviously, little pragmatic things and practical stuff as you're building, I think, of course, there's always room for improvement and help, but the big picture, I think that's where you should really have the internal drive.
Yep. Neha, any advice for founders?
So I think specifically for the B2C founders who are running a consumer-based company, just talk to your users and keep talking to your users when you're building the product. Back it by the data, how users are performing on your product. And I think, the second thing is, instead of launching the features to almost everybody just by your own gut feeling or conviction, launch it to a small set of users, understand how they are behaving, what their reactions are, and then try to do a lot of A/B testing and then work on that. That's one big thing which worked for us also.
This is so true. And you saw some of the successful companies do that, right? Facebook, all the features were tested on their employees before it goes live. And I think Google did the same thing, that the features are not live until, the internal employees have tried that. Any advice for founders, Shelby?
I would say just being incredibly resourceful and just looking at all the ways you can do something. Kind of as an example, at the beginning of COVID, about a year ago from now, like many industries, the mining industry was on a bit of a pause for a month. And we wanted to bring in some cash to our company. And we also realized that there was a PPE shortage in Canada. And so we actually turned to our engineering team and a couple of other startups, and we said, hey, we're going to 3D print a bunch of face shields using this kind of manufacturing method that we drummed up. So I think there's always going to be opportunities, and you have to just be resourceful to go get them.
Yep. Rule number 1 for IndieBio is don't die. Yeah. And Boo, any advice for founders?
Yeah, no, I think some of the very good advice I got early on when I started out the company is, first of all, fall in love with the problem that you're solving for instead of the solution, because we're all full of ideas. And I think back to Maria said, right, people going to give you ideas left and right. How do you stay focused? It's all about the problem that you're solving for. And then from there on, you figure out the solution, especially for a lot of us, like technical solution, right? We come up with this great idea using this amazing technology. Consumers don't care how amazing your technology is, but they care what problem you're going to solve for them. So don't stay too personally attached to the solution, but step back a little bit and figure it out. Is that really solving the solution or the problem that my users need? And if it's not, then be open to pivot. I think back to your question again, is that okay to pivot? It really depends on whether you have found a solution or not, right? It's not about how other people are telling you, because there's just a lot of noise out there. I think the other second advice that I got that I usually took it to my heart is that just don't run out of cash. You never know how much cash you need, and you probably always need a little bit more money than you think you need. So as you think about fundraising, it's an art, is timing when, but just figure it out. Don't wait for the right moment, because that right moment for you is not the right moment for the investor, might not be the right moment for the market, right? So just make sure that you always have cash and enough cash for you to do a lot of things, because it takes you a little longer to figure things out. I know we're all trying to think that we have all of the solutions, but sometimes a lot of the factors don't work the way we want it. So make sure you put yourself in that position to just never run out of cash, so that you buy yourself a little bit more time. And If it means that you raise a little bit more money than you need to, then take that. And then as long as it's good money of people that can give you advice, I think that's very important.
I'm going to invite you guys to talk to the current batches, because you're basically repeating the same advice I've been telling people, is that, when the money is good, you should just take it, because you just have no idea what the world's going to throw at you, right? COVID, threw everybody sort of a curveball for a whole year, and you just don't know what's going to happen. And to Neha's point about talking to your customers, one of the companies in the current batch, their customer size is probably only about 2,000 wealthy individuals. And, one of the co-founders just said, they won't buy this. And I said, well, have you talked to 1,000 of them? Right? Like, then you have every right to say they won't buy it. But you haven't talked to any of them. So you don't really have, any data to go on. So 100% agree with the advice everyone's given. So I think let's take some stories. So you can either answer what went right or what went wrong. So it's either, it's your choice, or you can talk about both. So highlights and struggles. Maria, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. I think the resourcefulness thing really resonated. When we were at IndieBio, it was $200K in cash, and you have to. It's harder for biotech because everything is so damn expensive, and the equipment is so expensive, and we had to be incredibly resourceful because a lot of our experiments needed to be done in a level that is publication quality or on par with what Big Pharma is doing, but on a very limited budget. And we ended up scheduling a lot of demos with vendors, which we had the total intention of buying them eventually. But this was very much like, we have no cash right now. Please come to the basement with your equipment, and we will use it to get this data, which we will then use to fundraise and then buy your equipment, which worked out well for one of the vendors. But they were really kind, and we were super scrappy in using core facilities at universities around us.
What about highlights? I guess it's a struggle.
Oh, that was actually kind of fun. Also, when we were recently moving out of an incubator space, after that we were at the J Labs at NBC Biolabs, and after that we moved into our own space. We were subletting from a big pharma, and that was just awesome. Like, actually having the cash and the conviction to buy the equipment, because it's different, right? You can have the cash, but you don't want to buy something that you'll probably use for a month and that's it. But if you know that the company is going to be going in that direction for longer, you don't mind spending money on a mass spec. Yeah. Or an HPLC and all these super expensive equipment. So having that and actually building out kind of the lab of my dreams. Like, when I was a little girl, I would have loved to work in a place like this. And now I no longer get to do experiments, but even just like walking around the lab makes me so happy. Just like all the mishmash of things we got there. So
I also want to highlight just how hardworking and how ethical Maria is, because she's not going to brag about herself, but I am. So, like, during IndieBio, from 9 to 5, like the normal accelerator hours, she was doing business development, and then from 5 to midnight, she was in the lab doing science. And she waited until she had, for sure 2 years of runway before hiring. So, super ethical person. I would definitely work for her if I had a PhD, but I don't. So I don't qualify.
So stressful. To be honest, I'm also a bit of a control freak, and having to deal with training somebody to do things the way I like them to, with the stress of everything else, would have just destroyed me. So I would have rather slept even less and just done the science myself with Charlie, my co-founder. So we split the science in half, and then I did all the cancer cell stuff, and he did all the platform stuff.
So I'm perfect for you because I know nothing, and I'm just rasa. I can be trained.
It's mostly this.
Working film.
Pretty much. Just gotta have 2 of these.
So I think I would start with the COVID story. So we were actually, Woovly was in a space of commerce for travel and adventure. And there goes the boom, the moment COVID happened, right? What do you call it? Whosoever you talk to, everybody wanted to listen to all stories except travel and adventure. So people were like, no, next 3 years, 5 years, no travel and adventure, right? So that was the perfect time for us, a good and a bad time. So I think for almost 2 to 3 months, we actually pivoted. Not pivoted. What we actually did was we were a platform for social commerce for last mile service providers pre-COVID. And we always had plans to expand to other categories, be it beauty and personal care, fashion, other categories. It's just that COVID made us do that expansion much before, right? So we kind of changed our complete platform, relaunched our platform within 2 months of time with one single resource, and then kind of started focusing on the commerce. I think one advice which we got early on from William SOSV is that yes, you would run out of cash. A lot of those things would happen. But if you have users who are paying you, that money is always better money. than the investor's money, right? So I think that's something which we started focusing on. So we did pivot. We also started focusing on revenues instead of growth, what we have been doing pre-COVID. So if you see from February last year till now, we grew from almost 900,000 to 3.5 million registered users, all organically, all by users, word of mouth or content sharing. That's one thing. Second thing is we started generating revenue. So, I mean, when I say revenues, 4 months back, we were at kind of a zero revenue GMV, and now we are doing almost, this month we would be hitting almost $100,000 of GMV. So one thing which we learned is you have users who are addicted to your platform. People say that don't ask for money, they would leave the platform. No, I would say like Gwen was saying, right? Ask them and only then you would know would they pay you or not. Yeah. So start. If you have addicted users, start figuring out ways to earn money from them. That's the best money which you can have, and that would help you in sustaining your business too. So I think that's the stage we are in.
Awesome. Shelby, what went right? What went wrong?
Well, I think, Maria's so lucky because can do both sides of business and the technical stuff. And I have a background in geoengineering, but we hired our first couple of teammates early on. And I think, hiring is definitely an art. But I think what we did really well, which we didn't realize at the time, is we really believe that you take mechanical software engineers that had never been in a mine, and we'd go on these big mine testing trips. We drive 4 hours up north, have these really long days, get in at 11 p.m., be at the mine by 7 a.m. the next day and work the full day. And pretty quickly you can bond with early employees and understand if they're really bought into the mission that you're trying to accomplish. So we did this with the first few employees, and they loved it so much that it became a bit of a tradition. Prior to COVID, at least, we would always try to get all of our engineers into a mine within the first few months that they're working with us. And I think that's I hope that we can do that when things go back to normal.
And Vu, what went right? What went wrong? Highlights, lowlights, struggles?
Yeah, no, this is good. I think we can talk about it among all of us founders. We can talk it for days because it's just a lot of the things that went right? Like, it's not like the good moments, but just to highlight a few, I think the very early things, I think Maria and Shelby mentioned it. Hiring is just an art and a science, a pain, whatever that is. You just don't know. And I think the early advice, when I was in business school, it sounds a lot easier than done. Every single founders and alum came back when I was at business school say, you got to hire really slow and you got to fire really fast. And that sounds like, I remember it by heart. But when it came to reality, when I had my team, I did the exact opposite. I hired super fast and I fire super slow. Because why? When you have so few people, you need these people desperately. And you're so afraid of firing them because you don't even know what good people and bad employees are for you, right? You have not enough experience to judge, but you hire so fast because you need them so badly. But as I went through one of that experience, there's somebody that we knew from the gut that it just didn't work out, but we don't want to go through that hiring cycle again because it's so painful. We then just kept them a lot longer than what we should have. And then, of course, then we paid for the debt like a year later because whatever they built at the beginning, you got to rebuild it. It takes twice as long to rebuild something that people had already built. You might as well start from scratch. So I think from some of the early hire mistakes that we had, I really, really start understanding what it means by hire slow and fire fast, and just use that conviction and trust your gut feeling. When you don't have a lot of experience, the only thing you have is gut feeling, and gut feeling had got you that far. It might tell you something that you just have to trust, right? And so I think that was an early mistake that we had. And I think we're still learning hiring over and over. I think the thing that went well is one of the advice I got is that we did launch a product a lot earlier than what we wanted. And I think somebody mentioned, I think people had said it before, right? Like if you launch if you're not embarrassed by the first product that you launch, it means that you launched too late. And I think everybody learned by heart right now. And I think we took it by advice, and we did go out to the market very early. Before, we're all perfectionists. We want to wait for a little bit to make it better. But I did make a very conscious decision that launched a product a lot earlier so that we gathered a lot of meaningful feedback that I think accelerated our learning by a lot. We launched a product, we built an AI, and AI, you have to wait for enough data to have accuracy. We launched a product when our accuracy was really, really low. We barely recognized what people said. But the backup that I have to the team is that worst comes, we're just collecting all of this data, we retrain it, and we change the name of the company. Nobody even know about us anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But that gave us a lot of insights that I think we could have never really got it. So I think as soon as you feel like you're just about ready, launch it, gather feedback from the market. It's much better than you trying to learn it on your own. And I think that went pretty well for us at the beginning.
I 100% agree with you. I've been saying the same thing. I literally had the same conversation with a current founder today, which is, so Steve Jobs has this quote, which is, founders ship, right? You don't ship shit, but you got to ship, which means, and so what I told this founder is, if you have repeat buyers, you're doing something right? So we know it's not crap because people are coming back to buy it again. And, I think everyone has talked about hiring being an art. I've actually heard stories of when the team is small, when you only have 4 or 5 people, when during normal times, not COVID times, the whole team would rent an Airbnb so that you're forced to sleep on the floor, you're forced to interact for the whole weekend. And then you learn a lot from somebody over a long weekend versus 1 to 2 hours, right? And so I've heard that story too. But I think the other story I heard was, ask the person that you're interviewing what he or she needs to accomplish the task that you want them to. And the resourceful ones, which is the type that you need for early stage companies, will figure out, the quickest and the cheapest ways to get it done. And also plan B, plan C, if plan A fails. That's your person. I think the other thing, commonality, Sarah Tavel at Benchmark, she was quoted in March saying, she went back to her founders and said, whatever 2020 plan you gave me in January, scrap that. Like, don't even try to edit it. Just throw it out the window because the world has changed. You got to start from scratch. What's your new plan, right? And so I have seen that, some of the best founders adapted super quickly. And, we definitely saw that with this panel. So I want to be mindful of time. So I'm going to close with one question before we go to the Q&A and one-on-ones. And I want to end on something good, which is, what are you most excited about? What are you looking forward to in the future? Maria, do you want to start?
I'm looking forward to getting our next lab space that'll be even bigger and getting more fancy toys. At this point, because of COVID, we were really limited by the social distancing protocols, and our hiring is essentially capped out because we can no longer fit more people while abiding by the distancing. And with LabWorks, this is the one thing that you can't do remotely. So that really hit us hard. So our hiring plan was severely affected. But really looking forward to getting another space that's bigger, expanding, getting the science move forward, generating more data that we know what to do with. I think that'll be a fun place to be.
Yeah. And so if anyone knows of large lab space in the Bay Area, please ping me or ping Maria. Neha.
Ideally.
Neha, so, what are you excited about?
I think it's purely a business goal. We are looking to do a 10 million ARR.
Nice.
If we do that this year, then we would become India's first company to reach this number so quickly within the first year of launching commerce. So that's the internal target which we have kept for ourselves.
That's nice. I'm going to go download your app. Shelby, what are you most excited about?
I think that there's 2 things. One is just we've been working remote for a year now, just having our whole team, which has now grown so significantly, all in one space, will be an amazing feeling. And I'm also very excited that we're going to be expanding to Australia quite soon. I want to see that happen.
That's great. And Vu, what are you most excited about? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, this year we just closed a new funding round, and that's going to help us expand to Latin America market. So I'm extremely excited with the potential of a new market can bring. When you launch to a new market, lots of learning, definitely a lot of the highs and the lows and whatnot, but it's always exciting opening up something new. So I'm super excited about that.
That's great. Thank you guys so much. If you like this, send some feedback to Kayla and Ned, and we'll try to get this going on a regular basis.
Thank you. Gwen, thanks so much for moderating.
Thank you.
And Kayla, thank you for organizing.